Welcome to Sikorski's Think Abouts, and I'm your host, Laura Sikorski. My guests and I share our operations and technology expertise to help you provide outstanding customer service and customer experiences. Today joining me is Aoifa O'Donnell, and Aoifa is the CEO of National EAP, and EAP stands for Employee Assistance Programs. And we are going to have a great show because we're going to talk about maintaining a positive workplace culture. And there's a lot of interesting points that Aoifa is going to share with us. A little bit about her background. She is an experienced trainer and public speaker. She has many articles in Long Island Business News, Newsday, HR Benefit News, and just told me this morning that she is featured in one of the featured articles in Time.com talking about bad bosses. And that is what we're going to also talk about today, I'm sure, but we're not bad bosses, right? No, we're great bosses.
Never.
She's one of Long Island Business News 40 Under 40, and she received the 2012 Human Services EAP Award from the Caron Foundation. So we are very excited to have you here this morning, and so we're going to just go right to it.
Great.
So workplace culture, what is it?
Oh, workplace culture. It is the behaviors that are a result of, really, as you feature there, the values, the beliefs, the underlying assumptions, attitudes of leadership and employees in the workplace. So workplace culture is that thing that you feel when you walk into a room in a company, and you can feel it in the air.
So you sense, this is going to be a happy place to work, or this is, I could just tell from the faces, these are not happy people.
There's a stressed out culture or a negative culture, or we can have a really positive, supportive, happy culture.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to remind people, when you go into a doctor's office, that's usually a good testing ground for culture. I find personally, a lot of doctors' offices can be quite tense and bitter, and people are arguing, and employees are dismissive behind the counter. So that would be a negative culture. Workplace culture it's created really by unwritten rules. It's not something discussed necessarily or decided upon. It's a conclusion of behaviors based on people's experiences with each other.
And interestingly enough, last week we had a show, Patient Experience, actually 2 weeks ago, Patient Experience, and we were talking about going to the doctor's office and how it's such a threatening place because, the people don't know if you're coming there for a happy reason or a sad reason. And, and if you don't, obviously you don't want to discuss your issue at the front desk, but it's a very tense kind of a culture. We talked a little bit about that it sets the tone. How important is the business owner?
Oh, the business owner is integral to creating workplace culture. Workplace culture is defined from the top down in every organization. So it is absolutely influenced by the company's founder, by the executive team, by the mid-level team. If you have the ability to influence the workplace, then you are responsible for the workplace culture.
That's a tough role to play because, again, as a chief, the chief of the company, it is your job to make the money and to make sure that the product or services that you're doing, and then you have to concentrate on making sure that your employees are happy, because happy employees means happy customers. So it's not an easy role, folks out there. What do you mean by it shapes your work?
Workplace culture shapes really the productivity of the employees. It shapes the effectiveness of the company overall. It's going to have a direct correlation to your client satisfaction, your client experience, your employee productivity level, satisfaction. Culture will absolutely create the environment in which people either blossom or wither.
Well, those are great analogies, blossom or wither, especially in the spring right now. But it's so important, and no matter how many articles you read lately or hear on TV talking about it, it's always culture. So I want to again thank you for coming. Healthy workplaces take work. So what kind of work does a business owner have to do?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of work. This is the catch today, is that, everybody wants a positive workplace culture, but it is not something simple to create. It's something that we have to work on every day, every week, every year. As leaders, we cannot stop focusing on how do we create a positive workplace culture. And we should be asking the question of how well we're doing. Because it takes work, sometimes too many companies have funky culture or a withering culture or a really toxic culture. And I think it's important to understand what those are.
What those are. So, a toxic culture. I thought that was a unique word to talk about, in an office environment, because you wouldn't you look at it as toxicity as something that should be existing. But I love the words, ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss, and that's number one key factor in why toxicity can occur. When a company founder or management team decide they're just not going to pay attention to it. We've always done what we've always done. It's the way it is. The status quo is never challenged by management. New employees that get hired quickly, even though they may be full of that positivity and inspiration, they learn quickly the social norms in that workplace. And if it's a toxic culture, in order to survive, they're going to have to meet the behavior in that place. Or they're going to stand out. And maybe they won't survive long. They'll decide to leave and go get a different job.
Yeah, and I've seen that with relatives. One of my nieces, she went to work for a company, and everybody is, she was excited and first day on the job and, wanted to learn as much as she could. And then she kind of got the vibe like, calm down.
Right.
You're just, it's your first day. And then, of course, it didn't get any better. So she was trying to figure out what to do. And she actually went into the boss and said, I'm trying to fit in here. What's going on? And it was like the boss went, oh, I didn't even know I had a problem.
Right.
So interestingly enough, folks, bosses, you have to, when you come in the morning, make sure you know your staff. Look at them. See if they may be just having a bad day, that particular person, find out why. Or they've just, created this crowd of just toxicity.
Yep.
Bad bosses. Now, we talked about that a little bit earlier and about your article. So, what is really a bad boss? I mean, I know I've had bad bosses, and I'm not going to tell you who, but they have been horrible.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, we've all had a bad boss along the way, and sometimes they're great teachers as to what not to do, right? But bad bosses are those folks that generally they create an employee that does not want to come to work. They create an employee that dreads the workplace, that is in fear possibly of any feedback they're going to get from this manager. Bad bosses are typically defined by someone who has poor communication styles. There's two types though. You could be a quiet, passive bad boss where, it's all very nice and calm, and you can not maybe send out a few cutting words though that will really knock an employee down, which is not a good thing. Then you have the overt
give an
bad
example
boss.
of what a bad boss might say.
Like a passive-aggressive boss would be, you did great on this project, however.
Oh, it's that however or the buts.
The buts,
They just forget that they have to use those positive words.
It's like, thank you for getting the job done, but you were 3 weeks late.
Yeah.
And there's just never anything positive. But it can be worse than that, much worse than that. Bad bosses are not folks that are really focused on how do I motivate my team. Instead, it's about power and control. It's about dominance. And a dominant boss is not one that raises people up. It's one that keeps people in line, controls them, but really negatively affects the culture, and then, as a result, the productivity and the engagement.
Wow. Well, we're going to stop for a little commercial break, and we'll be back with more Bad Bosses.
Hey Larry, every week I watch your show.
As you should.
And I know so much about sports now. Thank you.
You should be learning about sports. And everybody should be watching all our other shows here on the Daily Blue.
Why are you promoting the other shows? I thought you were the king of the Daily Blue.
That's true, but I'm all about everybody. It's not always all about me.
No,
all
it really
about
is.
The team.
Every day I wake up and it says, today is all about me, Corinne. Don't
I've
lie.
heard that.
Don't lie. Tune in every week to the Daily Blue and you'll see Sports Biz with LD. And you will get a lot of information, updates in sports and a little bit about Sports Biz.
And that's me, Larry Davis, Sports Biz with LD.
Welcome back, folks. And we're still continuing to talk with Aoifa about bad bosses. So let's kind of go back to inconsistent expectation, manipulation. That word kind of bothers me that a boss does that.
It's terrible, but unfortunately it's so common. You know, at EAP, about 3/4 of the reasons why people call us for workplace issues is because of a bad boss experience. The employee perceives that they are being treated unfairly and unjustly. And manipulation, it's about motivating someone the wrong way. It's about instilling fear to create the work expectation that they have.
So, in terms of the HR department, are these bad bosses truly bad bosses, or do you think it's, what is the percentage?
That's a really good question, and I love that you brought that up, because employees often will perceive, a lot of bosses as, oh, they're terrible, they're bad, they're all bad.
They have it out for me.
They have it out for me, and sometimes it's just a difference in perception, right? Reality versus perception. However, there are some bad bosses out there that are truly, truly, truly messing it up, and they're not doing well. From an HR perspective, though, I find it hard to criticize someone when they've never been given management training, when they've never been taught, how can you be an effective boss? How do you motivate employees? Some bosses that have been in management 10, 20, 30 years don't realize that they're responsible for actually creating a motivating environment. And that's not fair.
It definitely isn't fair, and a lot of folks out there, you don't train your new leaders, and leadership training is extremely important in today's environment. I find, luckily, I've always had bosses who kind of helped and molded myself, but I could go into one of my consulting companies and I just cringe when I look at the staff that we're going to be interviewing, and you could just tell they're just not happy campers.
Not happy campers. And you can feel it.
And I like the last one, poor interpersonal skills. I mean, if you want to be a leader, you've got to be able to be kind and understand, have empathy. We spoke about Deirdre Siegel, who had a show on our network, and we talked about empathy. And people don't understand, and sometimes you just want to shake them. You know.
Well, employees show up with all kinds of personal problems sometimes, and if we don't express a moment of compassion or a moment of tenderness for their struggle.
Or they may be having something known as a birthday. Or one of their children has a birthday. And you have to be cognizant of that. Or, this coming weekend is your daughter's wedding. Give the mother and the father or the bride the Friday off, or the Thursday of the and just do it by not taking a holiday away from them. Just be a nice boss. So we have unattended employees. This really interested me because I've never heard about an unattended employee.
Yes, and this is definitely the fourth contributor to a toxic culture. And two types of unattended to employees. One is inappropriate. These are the folks out there that are in our workplaces that are getting away with bad behavior. So we talk about bad bosses. Well, we also have bad employees. And when I say bad, it means that they're employees that might be too aggressive verbally with colleagues. They might be too pushy. They may be rude, dismissive. They may engage in real bullying behaviors, such as targeting someone on their team. Engaging in something we call mobbing, which is creating a group culture that isolates others. So this is behavior that's inappropriate for the workplace, and in this day and age really shouldn't be allowed.
Exactly.
But we don't take care of it. We ignore
and so
it.
A boss who is truly a good boss would be walking the floor and noticing changes, as perhaps the boss walks in and saying, why all of a sudden did something happen as I appeared on the scene,
Or if you get multiple complaints about somebody, or you're hearing, concern, or someone's afraid to speak to this employee. Why? Because of a reactive personality maybe, or a reactive behavioral type. It's not appropriate. Something needs to be done.
I'm concerned about the word bullying that you used in the in the office environment. I guess I really never equated the word to an employee who's really quote toxic. But they do bully.
Oh, they do. Employees do, and it's something I like to call the playground syndrome. It hasn't changed. 6th grade workplace sometimes doesn't change, and some folks unfortunately do engage in that type of behavior where it could be, again, passive, which is more subtle, or it can be very overt. And it's overt because they're getting away with it.
Yeah, and that truly is, and people who are the end result of a bullying situation, you don't want to go to HR because you feel bad that you're going to, everybody knows you're walking into the HR department. So it's tough.
Very tough. And the other one, if you don't mind jumping in there, is your poor performing employee. Because the bad behavior, we need to take care of that, but we also need to address the folks that are falling behind in their job. And usually it's not the folks that are hired that are doing a bad job in the first place. It's our employees that we've had for a year or two, and suddenly there's a dip in their performance. If we ignore that dip, though, that affects the culture as well, because all the other employees have to pick up those pieces. And they begin to resent it and feel frustrated that they're not being held accountable.
But what about a tenured employee? Somebody who's been there 15, 20 years. I know I've come across many of those in my consulting engagements. And how do you keep them positive? What do you do? No, you don't fire them.
No, you never fire them. So you mean regarding poor performing?
They're there. They come in, do their job.
Yeah.
They just slide under the radar. How do you get them?
Well, we're absolutely going to talk about this because it's about accountability, but it's also about setting the stage. What is it? What kind of culture do you need, and what kind of employees do you need? And if we're not clear on what that is, and we don't hold them accountable, those folks are going to exist.
They just go under the.
Yeah.
All right. I can't believe there's so much stuff for toxic culture, huh? No common mission or goal.
And this is referencing what you said and my reply to you, which was, if we don't tell employees what kind of culture we want in a team or a department or in the company as a whole, how can we expect them to get there?
Right.
So not sharing that mission, not working around creating that mission, it can create, disengaged employees. It's important that we remind them why we're doing the job we do, why it's important that they reach the highest of their professional level, and that they work well together. Then
the loss of the big picture in the call or contact center. It's I find many times I'll go and walk the floor, and I see a mission statement, and it's paragraphs and paragraphs. Nobody's going to remember it.
No.
Keep it fun, keep it topical. Don't lose the fact that your goal is, let's just say in one case, a happy employee or a loyal brand or a loyal customer.
Right. Absolutely. So talk about it.
Exactly. Talk about, right. What can an employer do?
Sure.
We talked about all these issues that create toxicity. Let's kind of do a little laundry list.
Sure. Well, what can an employer do to change all of this? Because we don't want a toxic culture. We'd like to have a positive workplace culture. So number one, reality check. What is the state of our company? What is the state of our department, our state of our team? Because it can trickle down. The company as a whole could be great, but you could have a toxic team. So reality check. Number two, know what you want. State what you want. And that goes back to mission. Define the mission. Define what kind of corporate culture you wish to have and express it to everybody. 3, communicate. That's what I was just saying. You have to get the word out. You have to tell people what it is that you want. 4, training. It's essential. We need to give people the education and training that they need, and same with employees. 5, we have to hold our leaders accountable, and we have to hold our employees accountable as well. And 6, take that action. If after we've given people resources, education, training, we've stated what we need and we still don't get it, well then we need to take action to weed our garden.
Weed our garden. Okay, and we are very close to ending, folks, but I'd like us to talk about what, continuing with the leadership team. Terminate, I hate to say this, but terminate if you can't meet the expectations.
If you put the work in and you still don't get what you need out of your employees or management,
it's time to,
it's time to terminate.
Time to, what I love that you call weed the garden. It's kind of a different type of phrase to use, but if you've done all this, if you educated and trained and held them accountable, sometimes you just have to let somebody go, and it's not an easy thing to
absolutely.
do, terminating an employee. So as always, we like to end our show with think abouts. So make sure that you nurture your employees, you pay attention to the employee, set boundaries, make sure that an employee knows they can just go this far.
Right.
And certainly, I love this the way you've done this. Fertilize, provide sunshine, water, your workplace. So with that, I'd like to let you know a little bit. Aoifa has a great seminar coming up on July 28th, and it's DISC training, and basically it's understanding the personality traits of your employees. So certainly I would suggest getting in touch with Aoifa, and her phone number is 631-588-8102, and her website is nationaleap.com. Certainly to reach me, Laura Sikorski at Twitter. And of course, we always like to thank our videographers and the camera crew, and thank Corinne Caro for being the head of Blue Chip Marketing and the Daily Blue. And if you'd like to be a host or suggestions on topics for our show, you can reach them at 631-761-9223. And with that, thank you so much for clicking in, and have a perfect day.